Hello, I'm Cal. If I haven't officially met you in person, thank you for watching this video. I wanted to present to you the latest deal down in Houston that I have, that I'm looking for someone to come in and do a joint venture with us. Okay. Basically, how we work is there's more deals than we have funds available. That's always the way with every real estate investor. Okay. You can only do so many deals with your own money before you end up having to pass on really great deals like this one because you're all tapped out. Okay, so everyone that's in real estate eventually gets to that point, and the great thing is that we're able to bring really great real estate investment opportunities to people like yourself, where you get a chance to come in and partner with me and my partner and my company to profit from these deals that we find. Okay, so I'm going to show you this current deal that we have that we are looking for a partner on, and I'm just going to share my screen right now. Okay, so what I've done is I've just created a little PowerPoint presentation that breaks down the property itself, our strategy that we're going to be doing with this property, and then of course the most important part, how you can profit if you were to choose to come on board and be a joint venture partner with us. Okay, so this PowerPoint here breaks down. I have a spreadsheet that I can share with you that has all the numbers that I'm going to discuss so you can look at, but I'm going to break it down piece by piece just so it's really easy for you to understand. Simplifies everything. Okay, so this is the house, 902 West 8th Street in Freeport, Texas. Okay, we have this currently under contract to purchase, and we are set to close mid-August. Okay, so we have about 2 weeks to close at this point, as it's August 1st right now. Okay, so this is a look at the home, and basically, I'll give you a rundown. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay, it's 1,387 square feet. It's got, as you can see here, a 1-car attached garage, and it was built in 1960. Okay, we have it under contract to purchase at $95,000, and based on similar properties that have sold in the area over the last 6 to 12 months, we feel that if we were to do a full remodel to the home, it would sell for about $130,000. Okay, and that's based on similar sales. Okay, in its current condition, it is move-in ready. Okay, it needs no real work for the strategy that we're going to be doing. The sellers have recently painted the entire thing. There's no real major repairs at all that are required. The roof is good, the foundation's good, AC is good. It's a slightly dated, but that's perfect for the strategy that we are implementing here. Okay. Other than that, I've got property taxes and insurance estimates here. And it would rent, if we were to choose to rent it, it would rent for $1,300 a month. Okay, but that is not our strategy, as you're going to find out. But it is a good backup strategy. So just so you're kind of aware spatially on where this property is located, here's the Gulf of Mexico, here's Houston here, and it's about an hour south of Houston. Okay, so down these major highways here towards Galveston and down this way, there's pretty much town and city all the way along these highways, and then there's activity all across the coastline. Okay, and here's a zoomed in view. So it's close to the coast, which is great because there's a lot of employment opportunities in this area. It's a very blue collar area. There's, you can see here, there's petroleum type industry all over the place within driving distance of this property. Okay, I'm just going to zoom out again. So basically all through this whole, from Baytown and up all the way down through here, there's refineries and all kinds of oil and gas activity, as well as residences and stores and malls, and the whole thing. It's all very well developed, but it's very oil and gas heavy from a blue collar job perspective in this whole area. And it's a port town, so there's shipping and there's fishing and everything else. Okay, so I like this. Wherever there's jobs, there's people, so we never have to worry about not being able to sell the property or rent the property when there's jobs and people around, right? So here's our strategy. Okay, so we are going to buy, well, we have it under contract to buy at $95,000. Okay, and what I've negotiated with the seller is we're actually taking over her existing mortgage. Okay, so she's got a mortgage on the house already, and the balance on the mortgage is $46,000. Okay, so we're actually going to buy the house. So the house is going to go into our name. We're going to get the deed, but the mortgage itself stays in the seller's name. Okay, and she's agreed to this. Everything's great. But this is called buying subject to the existing mortgage. So if you ever hear that term subject to, it means that you're buying the home subject to the mortgage that's already in place. Okay, and so we've agreed that we're going to be making the monthly payments on this mortgage. Now, what we're going to do is turn around and immediately sell the house, okay? And we're going to sell it with what we call owner financing. So we're going to find a buyer that maybe can't quite qualify for a mortgage. There's lots of situations where this happens, obviously. Their credit score might just be, taking a hit recently. They might be recently self-employed, so they can't qualify for a mortgage. Especially in the U.S., with medical bills being so high, a lot of times people get into, some health issues and they get huge medical bills and then they get behind and their credit takes a hit. So there's lots of reasons, but we're looking for a buyer that's got very good income, that can easily afford the monthly payments and has a 14 to 20% down payment. Sorry about the text message there. 14 to 20% down payment, okay, waiting in cash, and a good job. Okay, so we'll vet our buyer, and then we sell them the home, and we become their lender. Okay, and this is key. So we're going to collect the 20% down. That's our goal, and then we're going to be collecting a monthly loan payment from our buyer every single month. Okay, so at that point, our buyer owns it. We are the lender, and then we're paying on this other mortgage. Okay. So how do we profit? Well, we're going to make a spread on the difference between what our buyer's paying us every month on their loan payments and what we are paying on the mortgage that we took over. Okay, there's going to be a spread there between those two numbers, and that's going to be our cash flow. Okay, and I'll show you the numbers in a minute. And then at the end, when our buyer decides that they want to fully pay us off, either by selling the house or refinancing with a bank once they get their credit up. When they pay us off, there's going to be a big chunk of equity there as well, because as you can see here, we're selling it for $145, okay, but we're buying it for $95. So you can see there's a lot of equity there, and there's actually going to be more equity created as we are paying down the seller's mortgage and they are paying us down. The pay down is going to create more equity there. Okay. So that's essentially how it works. The 3 points here with our strategy, and why I love to owner finance to someone that can't qualify versus just being a landlord is because of what's on this chart here. Okay. So when you're a landlord, you are responsible for the maintenance of the property, right? So things break over time. We all know this. Everyone's heard of tenants and toilets and all those things, getting the late night call because the toilet broke or something like that, and all the headaches that go with landlording. And if you're a responsible landlord, every time you get rent collected, a portion of your rent has to go towards your kitty where you're saving up money for when something breaks, right? So you don't get to spend all of that cash flow. So you got to keep some of it aside for when stuff breaks, when it needs a new roof, if it goes vacant, if the tenants wreck something, you got to go in and paint or fix the walls or something before you put in a new tenant. All that stuff, it cuts into your rent that you're collecting, right? Your profit. Whereas when we owner finance to a new buyer, okay, all of the maintenance and repairs, that is their problem, okay? If the toilet breaks, they have to call a plumber, they have to fix it. It comes out of their pocket. When something breaks in your home, you don't go and call your bank, right, your mortgage company and say, hey, come fix this, because your lender doesn't care, right? They just lent you the money to buy the house, and that's exactly what we're doing. Same thing. So when you're the landlord, you're responsible for making sure you have enough money to pay property taxes. And when we owner finance, that's our buyer's problem. Okay, we're going to make sure that they're paying their taxes. We're going to monitor this so that we don't, lose the house to tax foreclosure, but it's their problem to pay it. Okay, same with insurance. Okay, so I have to pay insurance and make sure that the property is insured when I'm the landlord. Whereas again, it's our buyer's responsibility to make sure they're paying the insurance, and we're going to monitor it again, but it's their problem. Okay. Liability insurance, you're going to need that as a landlord. It doesn't apply to us here as when we're the lender. Okay. Move outs. That's a big problem when you're a landlord, is the turnover, having to go in and clean everything so you can get ready for the new tenants. Move outs aren't really a problem because our buyer is living there, right? So if they move out, that means we're going to foreclose on them, or it means that they've sold the property and we're going to get paid out. Okay. The entry fee is way better when you owner finance. So when you're a landlord, you're typically collecting a damage deposit of some kind, which is usually 1 or 2 months rent, right? So it's not very much, a couple thousand maybe. Whereas when we are owner financing, we're collecting, in this case, 14 to 20% down payment. And our goal is 20%, and I believe that we can easily get 20% in this case. Okay, so we're talking now $29,000 up front, all right? And then the mindset is way different. So everyone, I'm sure, has heard stories or had this experience where tenants trash the place. They just don't respect the property. And that's typically the mindset of a lot of tenants, is that they're anti-landlord, they're anti-investor, and they don't care. They don't treat the property nice. Whereas the mindset is different, because we're allowing these people to get in and own a property, and it's their property. So a lot of times, most of the time, they want to take care of the home. It's their home. They have pride of ownership. They want to take care of it because it's their responsibility if they don't, right? And then the appreciation, this is, I guess, sort of an argument against owner financing, and why a lot of people are landlords is because they want the property to appreciate, and they want to grow their equity and eventually cash out. But the cool thing is what we create the equity when we sell the house. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom back. So we're buying it for 95, and we're selling it for 145. So we've actually created equity right from the get-go. And when you're a landlord, you're hoping that your property is going to appreciate. But what if you buy it and then the market drops for 5 to 10 years? Okay. So then you're waiting on the market to return before you even get any appreciation, right? It may shoot up right from the beginning, but this way we're actually creating our own equity, and we know exactly how much it's going to be. And it doesn't really depend on the market. The only benefit for landlording versus what we're doing with owner financing is that there's depreciation, and it's another profit stream when you're a landlord. So that's one thing we're missing out on, but all the others are benefits to owner financing. Okay. And now the key to this whole thing is that we're selling the property, especially this property here, this deal, we're selling it to the buyer. Their payments for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, so their monthly payment to own the house, is the same. It's actually a little bit less than what they would pay if we were just going to rent this house to them. Okay, so they're able to own for the same price as rent. And so if you were in that position, which would you rather do? If it costs you the same every month, we're not going to talk about down payment, but just if it was costing you the same every month to either own your own house or rent, what would you choose? And I'd say 9 out of 10 people would choose to own. And that's why these properties are easy to sell this way, because people are going to choose this, and the bank isn't able to help them be an owner, and so they're going to take us up on this deal. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the cash required. All right, so we require the total cash to buy this house is $54,000 total requirement. Okay, that's not what I'm asking you as a potential cash partner, but that's what we need in total. Okay, and how this breaks down is, I told you that we're taking over a $46,000 mortgage that the seller already has. Okay, but $95,000, which is our purchase price, minus the $46,000, we're going to owe $48,500 to the seller in cash when we buy the house. Okay, so when we close and sign the documents, the seller is going to get $48,500 to walk away. Okay, and then we're going to take them over the mortgage. Okay, the closing costs to buy the house. So this is the all of the title company fees and county recording fees and all that stuff. the attorneys who draft the loan documents. It's going to be about $2,500. And then we're going to put about 1,000 in just to have a cleaner come in and do a really deep clean on the house, making sure it's spotless for when we market it and sell it. Okay. And as I said, the property is ready to go. It's in good condition. It's move-in ready. And then we're going to spend about 1,000 to market the house. And I've already actually started marketing the home. I've already started a Facebook ad campaign, and I've got about 80 to 100 people now that have shown interest in the house. One lady in particular is very interested in it. And she's even mentioned to me that it's for her daughter, and her daughter would probably end up fixing her credit. And in about 3 years' time, she'd just pay us out. Okay, so that's promising as well. And the people that I have talked to, many of them are completely fine with the 20% down payment. Okay, so that's why I believe it's very achievable to find the right person with a full 20% down. Okay, and then I'm factoring in some holding costs until we get our buyer in place. We're going to have to be making the loan payment, the taxes, insurance, and all that. And so it's going to cost us some money until we get our buyer in place. Okay, so when you add all that up, it's about $54,000. Now, we are good to contribute $20,000 to this over the short term. Okay, and so just based on our availability of funds, what we've got going on, we can put $20,000 in to buy it, but we're going to need to get that $20,000 back from the down payment that we collect. Okay, and it's just an agreement we made with one of our funding partners. Okay, and so we're going to get that paid back out, and then anything that's left in the down payment is going to go back to you as the cash partner. Okay, so to make this clear, when we close the house, we're going to need someone like yourself, if interested, to come in with $34,000 cash. Okay, and then you're going to get some of that back from the down payment. Okay, so if we get the full 20% down, you're going to get about $9,000 of that back. All right, so what's that? That'd be $25,000 in is what you'd be leaving into this project. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Okay, so let's talk. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but I just want to show you that this is the loan that we are taking over when we buy the house. Okay, so I told you we're taking over the seller's loan. All right, and so we would owe $46,000 on this loan. Okay, and it's a 30-year loan that's paid off in 2041. Okay, so what's that now? It's got about 10 years already paid off, which is great, because usually what happens with mortgages is that the first 10 years, that's when most of the interest is being paid, and then over time, the closer you get to paying off the loan, the more principal is paid, right? So this is great for us because we're already starting to chip away more and more at the principal and paid. A lot of the interest has already been paid to the lender. So we're building equity. Okay, so our monthly payment on this loan is $318. All right, and I've got all the numbers here. Here's the interest rate. Here's the balance when we buy it. All that stuff. Okay, and I've got, you can see here, I've broken everything down in what it would look like in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20, and 30 years. Okay, so if our buyer paid us out 3 years from now, we would owe $42,500 on the loan. Okay, that's the balance that would be remaining. In 5 years, it would be $39,000. 10 years, $30,000. You can see, obviously, it's going to be paid off. By 30 years, it's been paid off for, well, quite a while. Okay, so now let's look at our sale. Okay, and there we go. So I told you that we are selling it to an end buyer, and we're going to be their lender. Okay, so we're going to sell it to them for $145,000. Okay, and when they pay us 20% down, that means they're going to pay $29,000 up front. Okay, if it's 20%, and then the loan, the balance is going to be $116,000. Okay, so they're going to owe us $116,000. Okay, at 10% interest, and it's a 30-year loan. Okay, so when you factor all that out and you use your loan calculator, it's going to be $1,018 is the principal and interest payment we're going to make every month. Okay, that's what they're going to pay us. And again, you can see, how this loan is going to be paid down over the next 30 years. Okay. So let's look at the cash flow because we want to talk about profit. How are we making money on this? Okay. So as I told you, our buyer is paying us a loan payment of $1,018 every month, and we owe our lender, the mortgage we took over, $318 a month. Okay. So the difference is $700 in monthly cash flow. And we are going to do a 50-50 split on this cash flow. Okay, so if you come in as the cash partner, we're going to split it 50-50. Okay, so that's $3,500 going to you each month, $3,500 going to myself and our company each month. Okay, so that's pretty good considering that your cash requirement going in is $35,000 with probably some going back. It's probably going to be more like $25,000. Right, so on $25,000, getting $350 a month, that's pretty good cash on cash return. And I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so I told you, and I don't want to get this too complicated, but I told you that the loan that we're taking over, it gets paid off in 2041, right? The year 2041. Man, is that crazy? It seems like so far away. Okay, so that's 256 months from now. Okay, so while we are paying off that loan, the cash flow is going to be $700 a month. Okay, but eventually, if we were to stay in this transaction for the whole 30 years, and I don't see this happening, but if we did, the last 104 months before our buyer completely pays us out, our cash flow would jump to 1,018 because we've paid off the underlying mortgage. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that for the first 256 months, if we were to do this for 30 years, the cash flow would go from 700 total, split it up 50-50, to 1018 total, and the split would be 509. Okay. And so I just wanted to show you this because your cash on cash return goes from 16.8%. This is your return on your cash that you've invested, only considering cash flow, goes from 16.8 to 24.4 if we were to stay into this for the long term. Okay. Now, I also wanted to show the total cash flow earned. So if you just sum up the 350 every single month for 3 years, we'd make a total of 25,000. And 5 years would be 42, 10 years, 84, etc. Okay, so if we were to stay in this deal for 30 full years and our buyer didn't pay us out, we'd make 285,000 in cash flow. Okay, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but theoretically it could. Okay. And the cash on cash return is a figure that a lot of people like to use, especially when they're looking at rental properties. But basically, this is just taking your annual cash that you make from just the cash flow, so your annual profits, divided by the amount of cash you invested. Okay, so this is just a figure. You may want to use that or not, but it does not factor any of the equity that's built into this that would also be part of your profit. It only looks at the monthly cash flow. Okay. All right. So now let's look at that equity that I just mentioned. Okay. So I told you that we are buying the house for $95,000 and we're selling it for $145,000. Okay. So obviously there's equity there, and over time, because there's two mortgages involved, okay, we're going to be paying down our mortgage that we took over faster than our new buyer is paying our mortgage down, okay? And that's because the amortization is not lined up the same, okay? So both of these are 30-year loans, but we are taking this old mortgage, and it's already, I can't remember what I said, it's already like 10 years in, okay? So the longer you're in a mortgage, the less interest you're paying each month and the more principal. Okay, so we're able to pay down principal faster then our buyer is paying our principal back, okay? So that's why this number jumps around, okay? So you can see I just compared how much is owing on each loan at the 3, 5, 10, 20, and 30-year mark, okay? And our equity is just the difference, okay? So if our buyer pays us out in 3 years, they're gonna owe $113,787, and we are gonna owe on our loan $42,560, which means that we would cash in $71,227, okay? So that's a great chunk of money right there, right? And you can see in 5 years, we'd make 72, in 10, it'd be 75, 73, and then at this point, there's no equity, but we've made all that money in cash flow, okay? So that's why it says 0. It's just because instead of getting a big chunk of equity, we've just made that every single month in the principal and interest payments, which, as I showed you here, it's actually 285,148, okay? So you could put, in a sense, you can put that number there, okay? But the reason that jumps around is just because over time, you're paying more principal and interest, okay? So again, this equity would be split by you and I, or my company and your company, or however we do it, 50-50, okay? So you're gonna get over 35,000 in equity when our buyer sells or refinances our loan out, okay? All right, so let's talk about total profit then, because we've got the cash flow part of the deal, and then we've got the equity part of the deal. So there's two parts or two ways that we get paid. So let's add these together and see exactly how much you stand to make as a cash partner, okay? So you can see here, I just added that up. So I took the total equity in 3 years and added it to the total combined cash flow in 3 years, okay? So this is 25,000 plus 71, so that's 96,000, right? And that's exactly what we have, okay? So that's all I did, is I added the equity after 3 years with the cash flow after 3 years, and then did the same in 5, 10, 20, and 30, okay? So this is how much we would make if our buyer paid us off at these different year points, okay? So you can see the longer that we're in this, the more actual money that we make, right? So if we did stay in this deal a full 30 years, we'd obviously make the most amount of money, okay? And since we're doing a 50-50 split in this example, this is how much your share would be, okay? So let's look at this in terms of your return on investment, okay? Because I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter how much money we make, but we want to see what your return is on your money, okay? And so here's the calculation: is you just take your 50% share of the profit, so this column, minus your initial investment, okay, divided by your initial investment, all right? And then that's your total return, and then we divide it by the number of years that you're in on this deal, okay? So in this case, if we get 20% down, the amount of money that you have left in long term, I think I said, is 25,000. Okay, so it would be the total profit, so 48,218.90 minus 25,000 divided by 25,000. Okay, and then you divide that whole number by 3 because it's 3 years, or you divide that whole number by 5 because it's 5 years, and that's how I got this annualized return on investment. Okay. So you can see that this is a very lucrative deal, and I wanted to make it lucrative for you, and it's very lucrative for us too, okay, because we're sharing this 50-50. Okay, so I really love this deal because these numbers are fantastic. And as you can see, the longer that we're in this, your return does drop, okay? And I'm not saying we're going to be in this for 30 years, but if we did, you'd still have a pretty darn good return, a 16% return on investment. I mean, what mutual fund or even stocks are you getting that? I mean, it's pretty good. I wouldn't complain. When we do fix and flips or remodels, and we do short-term partnerships with private lenders, we offer them between 11 and 14%. So you're still getting a higher return than what we pay our lenders on fix and flips, okay? But the goal really isn't to be in for 30 years. And the thing is statistically across the US, the average length of time that people stay in one home, that own a home, is 5 to 7 years, okay? And the fact that they're paying us 10% interest each month, if these guys can figure out, like if our buyer can figure out their credit and get their credit score higher, it's pretty much a no-brainer just to have them refinance us out, right? They don't want to pay 10% interest when they can go to the bank and get 5 or 4, right? But because we're their only option, banks have turned them down. They're going to pay 10% because, again, their payments are the same as rent, okay? All right, so I just wanted to clarify, but that's what your returns would be if we're able to get 20% down from our end buyer, okay? Now, although our goal is to get 20% down, I believe we can, especially with this lower priced property. $29,000 isn't a ridiculous amount to ask for someone to have saved up as a down payment. And I've already talked to some potential buyers already that have that money, okay? But if we got to the point where we're just like, you know what, we can't find a buyer with 20%, but we do have someone with lower amount saved up, I'm willing to go as low as 14% down from our end buyer, okay? Now, that makes your return on investment drop if we did that, okay? But to compensate, I am proposing that you get more percent of profits if that happens, okay? So what I've got here is if we get 20% down payment, you and I split the profits 50-50, okay? If we get 19% down payment, you get 51, we get 49%. If it's 18% down, you get 52, we get 48, and so on. Okay, so you can see that if we ended up getting 14% down payment from our buyer, you're going to get 56% of the profits, and we're going to get 44. Okay, and that's just to make it more worth your while. Keep your returns pretty much consistent no matter what happens, and essentially we're paying the penalty for not being able to find a buyer that has 20%, and that's my role, right? My job is to make this deal work. We've already found the property, but now we have to find the buyer, and so that's my part of the deal, right? And if I don't perform, then why should I get the same amount of money? Okay, so this is all I'm saying. Okay, so let's look at the other end of this, and if we were only able to get 14% down payment, okay, here's what your numbers would look like, your returns. Okay, so they're still really, really good. In 3 years, you'd make 26.3 instead of 31. Okay, and if we did the full 30 years, it would be 14% instead of 15.7. Okay, so the numbers aren't quite as good, but they're still very, very good. Okay. All right, the last thing is our exit strategy. Okay, and I've referred to this quite a bit already, but here are the ways that we can exit from this deal and profit. Okay, so the potential outcomes. Okay, so number one, the buyer sells the house or they refinance and get a better mortgage at a lower interest rate. Okay, and this is the most likely scenario, is that somewhere between 3, 5, 7, something like that, this is going to happen, and our buyer is going to pay off our loan, and we're going to pay off the loan that we're paying on, and we're going to get the big chunk of equity, and you get paid, we get paid, and we're done, right? The other scenario is the buyer just loves the home. They are okay with paying 10% interest, and they stay for 30 whole years, okay? And that's not the most ideal. Well, it is. I mean, we make the most money, but the return on investment does drop somewhat, but it's still pretty darn great situation, okay? And then the other option, I guess, is if our buyer ends up defaulting and they can't make their loan payments, then what we do is we, just like any lender, we turn around and foreclose on them, okay? And we take the property back, And then at that point, we can choose what we want to do. We can find a new buyer, collect a brand new down payment, split that down payment 50-50, and start all over again. We could, at that point, just decide to sell the house straight out, like just on the retail market. We could decide to fix and flip it, so we could improve it, put granite countertops and brand new kitchen and all that, and sell it at full retail. We could choose to just put a tenant in if we want and just become landlords. So we have lots of options if that happens, okay? The other thing though is, say that we want to get out early, we don't want to wait the full 30 or even 20 or even 10 years. We could actually sell our loan, our mortgage that we have with our end buyer, to another investor, okay? And there's lots of investors out there that buy promissory notes, or they buy mortgages, and they want that cash flow, okay? They like the returns, that same kind of returns that we're getting. They want that kind of return, okay? So there's ways that we can actually sell our loan to another investor, okay? So then they own the loan now, and our buyer is paying them, okay? And then we get a big chunk of cash when we sell that loan, and then we pay off the underlying mortgage, and then we walk away with the difference, okay? So that's one way we can leave early. And the last option is, if you are just like, you know what, I have the deal of a lifetime, or I want that money back because I want to buy a house, my retirement home, or whatever you might need the money for. If you really want out early and you're able to give us 9 months notice, then we can actually buy out your position, okay? We will figure out, bring in a different partner that come in and take your spot, or, we'll just pay you out, whatever that may look like at that point. But we would just like 9 months of time to plan, okay? Because that's a lot of money we'd have to come up with and try to figure out, okay? But in that case, if that was the situation, then you'd be forfeiting your equity, okay? You would have just profited from the monthly cash flow. We'd buy you out the amount that you had in, and then you're done, okay? The equity stays in the deal, okay? And the reason for that is we'll probably have to bring in a new partner to take your spot and buy you out. And we need to promise that equity to them so that the deal is good for them as well, okay? So those are all the ways. Like I said, this is not necessarily a 30-year commitment. I know that's a long time. And like I said, we already have one potential buyer that really is keen on the house, that they are thinking 3 years, okay? So if you have any questions, I know there's a lot here to digest. I'm gonna send you the PowerPoint and the spreadsheet, but let's get on a call. I can answer any questions you might have. And if you're not interested, that's totally okay too. At least you know what we're doing, what kind of deals that we're doing. Maybe in the future it might make sense for you. But either way, thanks for hanging on. I know this is long, but I appreciate you watching the whole thing. And yeah, let's talk and see what we can do. Have a great one.